Now we're going to the next part, which is creating a HDA or digital asset from this. And I will be starting by selecting everything, and I'm going to make a subnetwork from it. Once the network is created, I'm going to right click on it, and I will choose create digital asset. Now I can give it a name of sci-fi panel generator, and an HDA will be generated. Automatically this menu will pop up, and in here I can make all the parameters that I want for my tool. So we will be going back in this network, and one of the first things that I want to do is I want to make a switch between what is my output, the high poly, the low poly, or even maybe in the preview state, which is the raw information from the images. So I will be doing that first. So we already have the high and low poly. What I need for this preview mode is this merge node, which contains the basic panels, but also the shatter boolean and detail mesh, and I want to merge this with the pipes. So merging that, I'll close this menu for a minute. So this is then a preview result. So this will be one of the fastest way to see your model. Then you can also have switch to high poly and low poly. Then creating a null node. Then type in here out preview. Then I will be using a switch node, and this switch node is then used to switch between these three. And to keep it a bit organized, I will be using an object merge, and I will be referencing them here. And I will do this a few more times for the other nodes. This is then the high, and this will be low. I can connect them to my switch nodes. Then I can view the high poly if I want to, or my low poly. To make sure this is our output, I'm going to use the output node. And this will always be the output, no matter if I'm standing somewhere else with my mouse. Like for example, if I would click here, this will still be my output. Then opening back that menu to create some properties, going here, and I will be drag and dropping this value. So based on the number it would switch from input, but I'm going to create a menu from this. So input 0 will be preview, 1 is my high poly, and 2 is my low poly. And you can press apply, and now it's applied, and you can see it's also referenced then. And also I'm going to give it a better name, and I will be just calling it show. And if you would go back here, one back up, we can now see show preview, or we can switch to the other ones. Then I would like to have access to which file it is using. So we'll be going to one of the first nodes that I've created, which was the PSD one, and I will be dragging the file in here. So I can choose which file the system is using. I'm going to press apply. We can also expose the reload PSD button, just in case if something wouldn't update, we can always have a manual button that updates the network. Then I would like to have some controls of each panel that is generated. So I have here my top panel and then the support panel for it. So we'll be creating some folders to organize the properties. And the first folder, I'm going to call it top panel. Second folder will be then the support panel. And I will be also creating a folder for my pipes. And then I will just sort the properties in the correct folder. So the first thing that I want is the depth scale, which will be useful. But I also would like to have like an overall scale value. And I will be using a transform first, and I will place it here. So with this transform, I can now move this easily up or down, or I can scale it if I want to. So what I will do is I will expose the value to move it up or down, and also the scaling if I want to have an overall scale. And I will name it better, move up/down. Then here, overall scale. Press apply. Then I'm going to expose these depth to have more an advanced scale. So you can now individually scale them from each other if you want that. So I'm going to call it layer 1 scale. Layer 2 and layer 3. So we have some control in that. What could also be nice is that you can expose more settings here. Like you can control the rotation. Like maybe you want to rotate sometimes 90 degrees. So you can also simply drag this in here. Rotate panel. Then I'm going in the detail meshes to add some control also in here. And here I will be creating a label in between and call it detail mesh. Detail meshes. And first what I want to expose is this one. So the first input was the texture, second input are random points, and the last input was for a symmetric placement. So I'm gonna call it placement method, and I'm also gonna use the menu here. So 0 is based on image. Then the second one is random, and the last one is with symmetry. Then we can also go in for the random method, go in here and expose the global seed. So seed for the random value. And I can also go in here and expose my scale for my model. Model scale. Then I forgot to expose the amount here, and I'm going to place it here. So amount of random. And I'm actually going to use the max points and let's say don't use more than 100. That will be more than enough. We can also go further here and expose this random value, but we can also use this seed we already have here. So if I apply on the tool, so we can use the seed value, and I can just copy this and place it then here. That will work. Then I will go back, and I want to maybe have some control in the shutter boolean. So I'm going to create a label again and call it shutter boolean. And in here, the main thing that I actually want is the control of the amount here. So as this already is a low value to work with, we can create here a multiplier to scale with that value. So I'm going to look for a float, I'm going to drag it in here, and I will call it bevel amount. And in here I call it shutter boolean bevel. Press apply. Then in here I will say multiply by the channel that is called as underscore bevel. And then right now it's going to multiply by it. Also the default value right now will be 0, but I want of course value 1. And I can also use a range if I would like that. And I think these are a decent amount of parameters we can use for the panel. Now for the other panel I'm gonna do a similar. For the other panel I'm gonna expose similar values like the scale and the depth to control with. Once this is done, I'm going to test the tool for a sec and see if everything works fine. So move up or down, works fine. Some of the scaling. So see, this is difficult to control. So I'm going to change some of the values then. Rotating works fine. The detail meshes. So let's say I want random, and it's going to place it random now. And the seed for some randomness, that also works. Then the beveling amount, you can also see that it's clearly working. So now I'm going to use one of my other panel examples, and we can see that it updates. And here I could use the symmetry one because it's more symmetrical, this one. Then I'm going to back to my original panel, and I will be testing high poly. So that also works. And let's say I want to view my low poly. So that all works fine. So I'm gonna keep it for preview right now, because that one is the fastest. So as these values were difficult to control, and here I will multiply them by 10. So this is then 0.5, this is then 1, and this is then 1.5, and then apply it, and then here I'm going to divide it by 10. Then I will change this ramp from 0 to 5 and see how that works. And press apply. Further, we're going to expose some values of the pipes, so we'll be opening the menu and we'll go into the pipes. I'm going to replace one of these cubes with the original cube, and I'm going to expose the radius and the columns of these tubes so we can actually control the amount of pulleys that we are putting out and also how big they are. So I'm going to start with that. So I want to expose the radius, and I will also going to create some labels, and I will be saying pipe 1, because we will have 3 pipes, so I will copy this, a few more, pipe 1, 2, and then 3. This is the radius from 1, and I'm also going to use the columns, and I will rename it to divisions. Same for this one. Then we have here this random value, and all we have to do is I'm going to replace this value with a value that we have here. So I'm going to create a float here, and maybe I just put it here on top, which is called pipe seed value. So either I replace the number of frames, or I can keep that and just add it. So we're gonna have to create the channel again. And search for the pipe seed one. And press apply. And I will be doing the same for this value. So I'm actually just copy paste what I just typed. So I've added this, and I can easily copy paste it here. So we have some control in there. You can also make separate seed values from that if you want to, but I like to keep it at one. Then next, what I would like to do is to make a system where I can control the pipes by some values. So as I might have mentioned before, is that now we have pipes everywhere, but sometimes I only want one pipe. So in my case, I would only like to have a pipe that's sitting right here. And what I will be using for that is called a multiparameter. This can be found if you use the folder, and if you change the tabs to multiparameter, you can then create a list of parameters, and you can choose the amount with this folder here. So I'm gonna name it amount pipes. I'm gonna press apply, and if we go back, this is gonna make more sense. We can see here, we didn't create a folder, we created this element, which can be used then to say how much pipes I want to add. So if I place a float in here and I press apply, we can already see here that there is a hashtag added to the name, and if I now press plus, you can see that the label has been added based on how much pipes I have here. Further here I can quickly test what's going on with the pipe system. So if I would scale some of them or lower them, they should all work fine. So going back here, to use these values, we will be needing another for each loop. This time I need a for each count, or it's called for each number here. So the loop will be looping 10 times, and this number is actually representing the amount of pipes. So I just created amount of pipes, and I will be using this value here. So now it will be looping 0 times, because I have not added a value here. So if I press 1 and I go back into the pipes, now we will have one loop. Then I want to create a point, and I can do this with the add sub and enable this and keep the position 0, 0, 0. And I will be using this as input. Then I would like to transform this point in the loop, and I will be using this label, this float, this value in the transform. I will rename this first to move, and I will call this the position, and we need to keep the hashtag, but it's gonna add it by default anyways. So we'll be using this value, and I will reference it here. But we cannot simply type it with the hashtag, you have to type it with a number. So if I say channel and I look up my position, we can see that it's called position 1. If I would add more, I go into the pipes, and if I add more, like 4, what we can see is that there's now position 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have to use the detail number of iteration. So we're not able to use this because it will only look at value 1, and if you type in hashtag, this will not work. So we have to combine the number of current loop number with this name. And there is a function to merge different values into one string. So first of all, we want to have a channel. Then we want to have the expression to combine strings, which is called strcat. And then I can now look for my position, remove the number part, and the second part will be the detail number, which is the current loop number from this node, so for each. So this is the for each count. For each count. Then we want the iteration number, and then 0. And we can already see that it has a problem with position.0 because 0 does not exist. So we're gonna have to plus 1 and press apply, and now it is working. So I'm gonna click on accept, and now I can control these points with sliders. So, and the way I want to integrate this is by using a copy to points, and I will be using my original shape of tube 1 with these new generated points. And now if I go here and use a switch node, I want to switch between these shapes. So I'm gonna click here and expose this, and I will call it the method that we want to use, and 0 will be all pipes, and 1 will be manual mode. Manual modes, and press apply. And let's put this to the test then. So going back here, and I'm going to manual mode, and we can see that there is one pipe in the middle, and if I move my sliders now, we can see that they are start to moving. But they're moving a bit weird now. And the reason for this is because of these axis aligned nodes. So we have to be careful with those. Because if I do a manual mode, I actually don't need them. So we can see that if I do no change, they are actually on the position where they should be. So what I will be doing here, I will here move these pipes that are automatically generated and move them already to the center here, so that this doesn't overwrite the manual position of it. And now I can see that this works fine. So it starts from 0, so we cannot go on this side, so I have to go back in the menu and look for the setting, and let's say we want to go from -5 to 5 and apply on that. I move my pipes from -5 to 5 or higher if you would like to. So in this case, like I mentioned before, I want one that's around here, and I'm gonna make it smaller. So it could be something like this. And it would also be nice to have up and down controller for the pipes. So I'm going to use a transform. So in here I automatically place it on max, so I will be after that, I will be controlling it. So after the max, and we want to sometimes fine-tune the position. So we go in here, select this one, and drag it here. I'm gonna use it at the bottom, at the top, and move up / down, and apply, and accept it. Then I'm gonna copy the node, and we'll be using it also here, so it takes the same values. So I can now move it up or down, and I want to use the ramp feature that I made. So we're going to the ramp, and I can already see I forgot here to use this as output, and I'm gonna expose the ramp then. And I will be making a new folder, and I'm gonna name it advanced. And in here I will be exposing the ramp, so shape controller, and I can also expose this, which is the high poly quality, and we'll use the menu. So 0 will be, I will call it just the default quality, and 1 will be the higher quality. Then I'm going to use some labels, some high poly settings, and some low poly settings. So for the low poly, I'm going to expose, of course, how much I would like to poly reduce. So I'll call it poly count. And I will be creating also a menu from this thing and call it cleanup method. And we'll be using the menu again. So 0 will be remove the back, and 1 is reducing the back. And I also want to expose this feature, just in case if I want to control this. You can further expose more unwrapping settings or normal settings if you want to, but I'm going to keep it to these settings. I was also going to create another output node, and my output here is set to index 1, and I will be setting maximum outputs to 2 and apply. And the reason for this is that I have 2 outputs now is actually for then the next step, and that's going to be baking, and we can easily then plug in or low poly and high poly. But before I go into baking, let's see if these settings work, and we can control this ramp. So that's pretty cool to get more control of the shape. And here we have the low poly count, some features to optimize it a bit, and I also would like to move up this, and then also the pipe, make sure the pipe is something like this, so it covers up the panel. And then I would go into make the low poly. Something small that I forgot is I have used a second PSD node, and we didn't link the file names to the main PSD node. So I'm just gonna copy this, and I will place it here in this one. So we don't see anything, and we can use that by doing this. And you can see it's updated now correctly. We can also expose the layer name, so we can choose what the name of the layer is, and I will be placing on top, and I will also be doing that for the second layer, and press apply. So now everything is set up to bake the model. Oh, I could also change this to my high quality version, and then it will take a moment. So then my first input is the low poly, or whatever you have selected here, and the second input will be then the high poly. You can build in the baker if you would like to, but I'm gonna keep it separate because I don't really need it to be one at the moment. So I'm gonna just bake the normal, and I also like to use the surface normal mode, and I'm gonna start with a low value. So this is like the similar setting you would use in a substance, And to preview the channel, we need to copy paste the normal name. So once everything is filled in here, I can click bake, and then a few seconds later I will have my normal map. So we did like preview channel, but we did not see it. So I have to enable the material here, and I can already see the result of my normal map. And I can go back and forward with changing values, and this should update quite fast. So once all maps you needed are baked, I will be jumping in Substance Painter and show you quickly the result in there. And this is then the result in Substance. So we can use the maps we've baked and use them here. And we can see that the normal did a good job of baking for this panel. And that is almost it for the tutorial. Then the last thing I wanted to show you is you can use the HDA you made and open it in Unity. So we have the setting to put in our file. We can change the settings that we made, and we can use it also in here. So we could, for example, use the pipe system we made, and I want to have a manual pipe that's placed around here, and then we can easily change the scale of it, and then we have a panel. You can also go view high poly and low poly, but keep in mind that this of course will take a moment to generate. And now we have the low poly version. And with this tool I managed to quickly make the sci-fi corridor in a few hours. And thank you for watching.